Archive Record 014. This is Agent 16, assuming dictation. My sister, formerly designated Agent 04, remains in Level 3 medical isolation following her exposure to Record 015A. Cognitive anchors have been doubled for this terminal, proceeding with the historical account of the Makiling anomaly. Mayumi was born during the hour before dawn, when even the wind hesitates. Her mother labored alone. The midwife arrived too late to save her. By the time the sun rose over the slopes of Mount Makiling, the woman who had carried her was already growing cold, and the child lay beside her, awake but silent, her dark eyes open as though she had been waiting. No father came forward, no name was offered. The town did not need one. They had seen enough. They buried her mother at the edge of the churchyard, where the soil was thin and the roots of nearby trees rose close to the surface. As if unwilling to release what had been placed beneath them, the child was taken in by her mother's older sister. Not from kindness, from necessity. There was no one else. There are ways of diminishing a person that leave no mark upon the skin. Mayumi learned early how to make herself small. She moved quietly through the house, completing her tasks without instruction. She swept the floors before the dust could gather. She carried water before the jars were empty. She mended what could be mended. She did not complain. She did not ask why, but she noticed things. She noticed how her cousins would fall silent when she entered a room. How the other women in town watched her with expressions they tried to disguise as indifference. How her aunt's gaze lingered on her, not with anger, but with something colder. Recognition, as though she were not entirely unexpected. The house stood at the edge of town, where the last cultivated fields gave way to the rising green of Makiling's lower slopes. Mayumi spent as much time as she could outside, not to escape, to listen. The forest did not treat her as the town did. When she walked beneath its canopy, the air did not tighten around her. The leaves did not whisper behind her back. They whispered with her. Birds remained on their branches as she passed. Dogs wandered to her side and rested their heads against her knees without invitation. Once, when she was still very young, she had reached toward a snake coiled beside a sun-warmed stone. It had not struck, it had watched her. Then it had gone. She did not think this strange. She thought this was how the world was meant to be. Her aunt did not allow her to wander far. "There is nothing for you there," she would say sharply whenever Mayumi lingered too close to the tree line. Mayumi obeyed, but she did not stop feeling it. The mountain was always present, even when unseen, even when ignored, until the eve of her 18th year approached, and the mountain, which had waited longer than any of them, began at last to call her home. Once, while drawing water from the well, she saw her reflection tremble. Not from wind, but from something beneath its surface. She stilled. The water stilled with her. Her reflection did not look wrong. It looked patient, as though waiting for her to notice something she did not yet understand. She drew the bucket and left without speaking of it. Mayumi's aunt did not speak of the past. She spoke only of what needed doing. Her voice had grown thinner over the years, worn by repetition and something less visible. But her eyes remained sharp. They followed Mayumi constantly, not with affection, with vigilance, as though she were watching something that might, at any moment, reveal its true form. The forest had not always stood as it did now. There was a place higher along the slope where nothing grew. The earth there remained black and bare, even after so many years. When she asked her aunt what had happened there, the older woman's face tightened. "Lightning," she said, "nothing more." But Mayumi knew lightning did not leave wounds that refused to heal. In the town, stories traveled in fragments. Mayumi gathered them without meaning to. Old men spoke of a fire that had not lasted for days, but had consumed the slope in a single, terrible afternoon. Extinguished rapidly lest the whole forest burned down. Of smoke that rose in a column so thick it had darkened the sky. Of animals fleeing the mountain in numbers never seen before or since. No one spoke of what had been lost, only that something had ended. It was during the first week of May that word spread of the gobernador's son returning. Miguel had been away for many years, studying in Manila. He returned taller, thinner, his skin lighter from time spent away from the sun. Mayumi saw him once, at the well. He had approached as she was lifting the bucket from the water. Their eyes met briefly. He did not look away immediately, as others did. He simply saw her, not as curiosity. He inclined his head slightly in greeting. She lowered her gaze and returned the gesture. Neither spoke, but something passed between them. For her, a quiet pull she did not yet understand. For him, recognition, or the ghost of it, a memory he was almost afraid to trust. The town prepared for fiesta. Mayumi helped with the preparations within the heavy stone walls of the estate. Though she knew she would not attend, her aunt had never forbidden her. She had simply never included her. Some exclusions do not require words. On the evening before her 18th birthday, Mayumi walked beyond the last houses of the town and toward the edge of the forest. She stopped at the place where the forest deepened. The mountain rose before her, immense and patient. Then she felt it. Not movement, attention. She turned. A woman stood behind her. She wore no ornaments, no bright fabrics, no sign of rank or wealth. Her hair fell unbound down her back. Her face bore no age. She looked at Mayumi as one looks at something long expected. "You have grown," the woman said softly. "Do you know who I am?" The woman asked. Mayumi hesitated. She did. "Not by name, by truth. You have been allowed to remain," the woman said. "But you were never meant to stay forever." The woman reached out and placed her hand lightly against Mayumi's cheek. "Come to the mountain when the sun has set," she said. Then she was gone. Mayumi did not tell her aunt what she had seen. She returned to the grand house as she always had, crossing the polished floorboards, her hands empty, her face calm. Her aunt sat beside the cooking fire, her back slightly bent, an aristocratic matriarch wrapped in shadows. Fear flickered across her aunt's face before being buried beneath habit. Sleep did not come easily that night. She closed her eyes and dreamed. She stood upon the slope of the mountain, where the earth rose steep and green. She was not alone. A man stood a short distance away, his back turned. His posture was still attentive, as though listening to something she could not hear. He turned. His face was calm, kind, and filled with a sorrow so deep it did not need expression. Before his fingers reached her, the earth beneath him darkened. Smoke rose. The trees around him blackened and split. Fire moved along their trunks, consuming them in the span of a single afternoon. He did not retreat. He did not resist. He looked at her, not in pain, in farewell. At dawn, she found herself walking toward the forest once more. She climbed higher than she ever had before. She reached a place where the trees parted. The woman stood there. "Who was he?" Mayumi asked quietly. "Your father." The woman's expression did not change. "Your father chose to descend. He bound himself to the human world so he could remain beside your mother." "What happened to him?" she asked. "The forest that anchored him was destroyed. He could have returned," the woman said quietly. "But he did not leave. He remained where he had loved." "If I remain?" Mayumi asked. The woman's voice was gentle. "You will become something unfinished." The woman shook her head. "Tonight you will walk once more among them. You will be seen as you truly are, and then you will come home." The sun lowered slowly behind the western hills, and the town prepared itself for celebration. Lanterns hung from every doorway, their soft light waiting to bloom. Mayumi stood at the edge of the forest, watching. The woman stood beside her. "I want to see them once more," she said. Maria nodded. "Then you shall." She simply looked at her, and Mayumi felt something loosen, not added, revealed. The heaviness she had carried all her life, the quiet pressure that had bent her inward, fell away. She had not been changed. She had been uncovered. The town did not recognize her when she entered. She walked along the familiar road, her bare feet silent against the earth. Then someone looked again, and stopped, in recognition of something they had never noticed before. A quiet space opened around her as she walked. Miguel stood near the center of the gathering, speaking politely with elders who praised his return. He felt her before he saw her. He turned, their eyes met. He did not see a stranger. He saw an answer to a question he had never thought to ask. He led her toward the open space where others danced. They moved together without instruction. Their bodies found rhythm easily, as though guided by something older than memory. Across the gathering, watching from the grand campus-lined balcony of a stately home, her aunt watched. At first, she saw only a girl she did not recognize. Then she saw her clearly. The cup fell from her hands. It struck the stone floor and shattered. She knew, not by face, by truth. The mountain had come to reclaim what she had tried to destroy. Mayumi felt it before the bells began. Not a sound, a separation. She left the fiesta before the bells struck. Miguel followed. They walked the narrow path toward the edge of town, toward the dark line of trees that waited without impatience. At the heavy carved doors of her aunt's house, Mayumi stopped. Her aunt stood waiting, as though she had always known this moment would come. Then her aunt fell to her knees. The sound was small, but it carried the weight of years. "I did not know what he was," her aunt whispered. "I saw them together, your mother, and the man from the forest. He was not right. He did not belong." Her aristocratic facade crumbled into ruin. "I told the men the forest was diseased, that it would spread, that it would destroy everything." Her hands clenched. "I watched it burn that afternoon." Mayumi felt no anger, only understanding. They walked the narrow path toward the edge of town, toward the dark line of trees that waited without impatience. Miguel broke the silence, his voice steady but carrying the weight of a long-held memory. "I told you earlier that you felt familiar," he said quietly. Mayumi looked at him, the glow of the town fading behind them. "When I was a boy, before I was sent away to Manila, I wandered too far past the tree line," Miguel continued. "I slipped down a rocky embankment. It was getting dark, and I couldn't find the path. I thought the mountain would swallow me, but a quiet girl found me." Mayumi tilted her head, searching her own memories, but finding nothing specific. The forest had always brought her injured birds, frightened dogs, and lost things. She had never bothered to distinguish between them. It was simply her nature to mend what was broken and guide what had strayed. "She didn't speak," Miguel said, his eyes locking onto hers. "She just took my hand, led me back to the edge of the fields, and vanished before I could ask her name. I never forgot her. When I saw you at the well, I knew it was you." Mayumi smiled, a soft, heartbreaking realization. She had saved him without meaning to, simply because it was what she was meant to do. The first bell rang. Mayumi turned toward the trees. Miguel reached for her. "Stay," he said. She touched his hand. "I was allowed to remain," she said gently. "But I was never meant to stay." The second bell rang. "Then I will go with you," he said. She shook her head. "You cannot follow where I must walk." At the edge of the trees, Maria Makiling waited. Mayumi stepped forward. The ground beneath her feet felt familiar, not as something she walked upon, as something that recognized her return. Miguel stood at the boundary. He did not cross it. He could not. He met her gaze. He loved her enough to let her leave. The final bell rang. She stepped beside Maria Makiling. She did not vanish. She did not disappear. She remained, but differently, as though the mountain had unfolded around her and welcomed her into its memory. They say Maria Makiling still walks the slopes at dusk, and beside her, there is sometimes another figure, not a servant, not a prisoner, a daughter. She does not descend into the town. She does not speak to those who pass below. But when the wind moves through the trees, and the animals grow still, there are those who feel it, not watched, recognized, as though the mountain itself has learned their names, and is waiting to see what they will become. The preceding account is preserved as Case File 014A, within the Alamat archives. This record concerns a sovereign class being whose domain encompasses Mount Makiling and its surrounding territories. The archives do not presume ownership over myth. They preserve what remains. End of dictation.